Unless you've been really living under a rock and you're involved in not involved in following the international scene, you may not know what blockchain is, but the next speaker is an expert on the matter. She is an American expatriate who's stationed here in Germany, who writes about cannabis business news and breaks stories here in Germany. And her company, MedPayRx, is an innovative blockchain company, and she will tell you what that entails. So please give a warm welcome for Ms. Marguerite Arnold.
Thank you all. I mean, I'm after lunch, I'm the act, but thank you all for making it back. Thank you very much to Alex and team for making the sophomore year of the ICBC what it is, right? Can we have a round of applause? They have worked their butts off, right? So yes, my name is Marguerite Arnold, and I'm here to give you a very quick, easy deep dive in 15 minutes on a new technology called blockchain and how it is going to disrupt our already disruptive business. And it's going to be big. There are lots of ways to think about this, right? But one of the easiest ways to begin to understand how this technology works and how you can apply it in what you do is to understand that it is a protocol. So the geeks in the audience who know what TCP/IP is for voice, it's what makes your handy work, right? Or those people who understand what HTTPS is, which really allows you to type in google.com as opposed to a string of numbers in your browser and have that website come back. Those are protocols. This is what blockchain is. It's just a little bit more geeky, and it's coming out of the banking industry in particular, and it functions along a pretty simple idea. KYC. Now, for the uninitiated in the audience and the people who are still asleep, this is not a new brand of cannabis-flavored sex gel, although maybe it should be. It actually comes out of banking geek speak, and it means know your client. In other words, you need to know everything about your client so they're not a terrorist and where they live and what their bank account is, etc. But within the context of what blockchain really is going to be beyond banking, it really means being able to understand and verify, if not authenticate, many, many different points of data in a complex ecosystem without necessarily having all of the knowledge that you would traditionally have or think that you need. And if that sounds a little bit like the cannabis business in general, yes. And that is exactly where it's guys your job ways. But again, this is kind of abstract. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a fun example about how to understand this kind of verification in this kind of environment. So I've already told you my name, and you can both hear and see me. Whether you think about that or not, those are three different independent verification points that tells your brain you're here in Berlin and not on Mars. And if you're on Mars, we'll check in with you later. Some of you, yes, also know me as an industry journalist, and if you don't, you can Google me. That's another kind of independent verification. I'm also a blockchain enthusiast, if not expert. But where does that come from? So let me give you a little bit more information that you can also verify via very different ideas and channels. As I say to all of my German friends, yes, ich bin ein Amerikanerin Flüchtlinge von Trump. I'm an American refugee. I'm actually the first of my very, very old German family that I can trace back close to 1,000 years to actually come back here to live. And that's really cool. But I did grow up. I did grow up in an unusual family. No, that's not me in the picture. That was a good friend of my dad's. My two paternal uncles were people you probably know or heard of. One of them was a guy named Peter Drucker, you know, the father of business and the information worker, and the other one deciphered the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it was interesting. And this was a little fella that I met at the age of 8. The father of that is a guy named Gray Walter. He was one of the early pioneers really in robotics and cyberkinetics and where a lot of this has come from. And Turtle, I met this guy when I was 8 years old. He would scuttle around on the floor. He knew where to go to like plug himself back in the wall when he ran out of juice. And I met this guy at the age of 8 when the world was just meeting R2-D2 for the first time. So I think that this was love at first sight. But beyond that, That's kind of where I've worked, and I've taken elements of this from banking and technology that I've worked on, and the kinds of industries that I've pulled together over my life to try and bring together what I'm doing now. But if you want to think about what blockchain is at its fundamental level, it is a language that allows robots and computers to all, and occasionally humans while they still let us, to all talk to one another in a new and different way. And it also allows people to connect very different sources of data and people and enterprises in a new kind of ecosystem. All blockchains also use coins or tokens or smart contracts. These terms are used interchangeably, and increasingly it's not up to you to define what those are, it's other compliance systems, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But this, make no mistake about it, is the backbone infrastructure technology behind IoT, which is the Internet of Things. It's going to be interacting with AI. It's going to be responsible for all sorts of automation. Drones, I joke about, that one's coming soon. It's wild stuff. But how do you use it? And as a cannabis executive, OMG, another thing to deal with, right? So which blockchain do you use? Because there are a couple, right? There's Bitcoin, which was a blockchain before it was a coin. There's Ethereum, there's Ether. They're all different. And which cybercurrency? Because they're all tied to those. I'm going to make it easy for you. Cost, speed, and energy efficiency are the three things that you should immediately be looking for. Because ultimately, all blockchains also use electricity. So at every hop of the node, they're using electricity to do something. So you're looking for that as well. But what you're really looking for right now, because the blockchains that are out there are pretty impressive already, is what are called dApps. Now, this is just, short term for distributed application. If you've taken a look at the pretty front end, it looks like a regular app. The difference is that we are not tying into any sort of centralized system. This is all decentralized from the back, and I'm going to show you a little bit about the engineering. But beyond the technology, you've got to look for what that dApp actually does. Does it do something that solves your business problem? And if it doesn't, keep moving. This is the back end, a very artistic representation of what our system looks like. The doctor here, we never issue a coin. As MedPayRx, we never issue a coin, we never sell it, it's never going to be available on any exchange, it cannot be stolen, because it's not worth anything in the traditional idea. We have taken the idea of what a prescription is, it's a contract between multiple parties and two payers, and we've set up a banking system to allow that to happen. We never transfer medical data on this. What happens is that the doctor is the issuing bank. They're the ones who issue the coin, and it goes first to the insurer, who hopefully not only underwrites it, but approves it. It then goes to the patient, who is able to co-pay and forward that to the bank while sending a push notification to the distributor to tell you guys, real-time information about where your product is in play and where's it going. We deal with rebates as well, and I can give you more information if you want to stop by the booth. The idea was not to promote MedPay, but I want to show you the difference between what we're doing and an ICO, because I'm sure you guys have all heard about this too. So what is an ICO? An ICO is just geek speak for an initial coin offering. Sometimes they're called TGE events, token generation events. It's basically the same idea. A private entity or even a nonprofit or a government issues a coin. It could be for a raise of money, it could be for a community, etc. But the moment that you're charging a customer for that coin, for whatever it is that you're doing, you're in the financial space. And everywhere now, no matter where you are, that is federal banking law that you have to be in compliance with. So I'm going to back up here a second. This has to be in compliance, if we roll out correctly, with German banking privacy and medical privacy law. This is prescriptions. That's the idea. We're putting a digital focus and process on a system that has already been established under compliance. This is something that, for the financial geeks in the room, looks very much like a stock issuance, right? Because that's what it is. And that is why this is also so incredibly dangerous right now for this industry, especially in the United States, for reasons that include everything about you cannot have a bank account. And in other places, you have to make sure that this model is also in compliance with everything else that you're doing. So while there's nothing wrong with this, and in fact, this is a very smart way to raise money for things like drones. I mean, I joke about this all the time, right? Drones are going to be paid for by cybercurrency. A lot of the top companies are raising money for them, and all airspace is going to be controlled, low-lying airspace is going to be controlled by blockchain systems, which are going to be paid for by rent with cybercurrency. And airspace does, in fact, have a value, however crazy that may sound. In that particular kind of instance, great, but then what are you going to be carrying? So in other words, all of the steps that you have to go through for a successful ICO, you're going to have to go through to raise money successfully via other ways anyway. So if you do an ICO, you better be in compliance. You better have a good lawyer. You better be working closely with a bank everywhere. So those are the issues. It's not that they're necessarily all bad. It's just that they're very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So the takeaways, because I'd like to end this early because I know there are some questions. If you're looking at this and trying to evaluate blockchain for your business, I would stay away from the hottest, greatest cannabis blockchain out there, and there are a couple out there. They could be great, they could not be, right? Look for what the dApps do on that existing blockchain. Do they solve your problem? Do they not? Are they compliant? Are they in compliance? And are they in compliance in all the different industry verticals that they are required to be in compliance with? I.e., if it's a banking app that allows you to buy cannabis, for example, in Canada, you're going to have to make sure that your users are over 21. Those are the kinds of ideas, right? This is, as my late Uncle Peter used to say, technology is just a tool. And if it doesn't solve your problem, why bother with it? So look for that too. And ICOs and token generation have their place, but just be careful. So on that note, I think I'm going to end this and open it up for any questions there might be, and go from there.
Let's hear it again for Marguerite. Do we have a question or two? Anyone? Just raise your hand. I can see you. You have a question about the BitChain and the blockchain?
You can come see me later.
Oh, there he is, over there. Okay. I'm coming. I've eaten a lot of bread. I think I've gained some weight. There's lots of cake.
Thanks a lot for that very informative presentation. Would you maybe, in regards to the ICO, have any source of credible, good information that you could recommend?
About what? Like where you can find out if you're doing it, and are you doing it in Germany?
Swiss-based.
Swiss-based. Okay, yeah. So the Swiss actually, I mean, again, Switzerland and a couple of countries in the Far East are actually good places to actually do ICOs. But here's the next problem. So the rumor in Frankfurt last month was that no German bank would be accepting ICO funds no matter where those funds were raised and for whatever purpose. Why? Because even if they knew the identity of you and all the people you were getting money from, they could not trace the source of the coin. Remember, all of these are anonymous coins. They couldn't figure out what the coins are. So the German authorities are not really hip to this. And if you're going to be doing business in Germany, raising money by an ICO, that's one of the things you have to consider. If you're going to be doing business in Switzerland, if you're going to have one of these things happening in Russia with the funds, or maybe Singapore, or et cetera, where the banks are a lot more interested in this kind of activity, then where are you going to spend those funds? And that's one of the problems downstream of this. So that's just an issue. I mean, there are people who are doing it successfully, but you just have to be aware.
Thanks a lot.
Also, I'm wondering, like, how secure are blockchains or bitcoins or whatever they're called from like government intrusion? Like, what's to stop some government from just shutting everything down and then everybody's out?
Well, I mean, that's actually a couple of questions, but let me just answer this first one on government interference in cybercurrency. The Chinese government actually has just moved in to stop exchanges, and they don't like ICOs very much either. If you think that this is out there and not regulated and they can't do it, yeah, they can just cut the switch off. They can do a lot of tracing. All of the cybercurrency that is traded in the United States right now has got to be listed on these exchanges, and the IRS, when you sell them, looks at this, as a capital gain. That is technology that is changing quickly. So again, be careful.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all the time we have. We really, really appreciate it, Marguerite. Let's hear it again, and I'm sure she'd love to talk to you more in the hallway.
Can I just mention one last thing?
Yes.
So those of you who have not signed up for this, Phil Sinadella is running he's organizing the German Patient Roundtable, and it's an idea that's intended to work with all of the advocates here, but do it in a new way. If you haven't signed up for him, please go see him. It's about patient access, and it's really important. But thank you again, all of you. Thank you, ICBC. Thank you for being such a great audience, and please come and see me in the back with questions. Thank you again.
One more time. Thank you.